Picture this, June 1969. The World Cup is coming up and the atmosphere is electric. El Salvador and Honduras, two small Central American neighbors, are facing off in a qualification match. It's the final game, winner takes all. Now you might be thinking, it's just a game, right? Wrong. This wasn't just about soccer. This was about way more than a ball on a field. The rivalry between these two countries ran deep. It wasn't just about soccer. There were simmering tensions over immigration and land reform. See, lots of Salvadorans had moved to Honduras for work, but that caused resentment among some Hondurans. Add in some political opportunism, and you've got a powder keg just waiting to explode. And explode it did. The match itself was a brutal affair, full of hard tackles and dirty tricks. The Honduran crowd didn't make things any better, shouting insults and even throwing things at the Salvadoran players. By the final whistle, El Salvador had won, but the damage was done. The match, dubbed the Match of Hate, poured gasoline on an already smoldering fire. Things were about to get a whole lot worse. The thing is, this soccer match, as heated as it was just a tiny spark. The real fuel for this fire was decades of simmering resentment and political maneuvering. You see, Honduras had some serious economic problems, and the government, well, they saw a chance to distract everyone. They pointed the finger at the Salvadoran immigrants, blaming them for the country's woes. Sound familiar? It's the oldest trick in the playbook. Find a scapegoat, stir up some nationalist pride, and boom! You've got yourself a distraction from the real issues. Meanwhile, over in El Salvador, the government wasn't exactly innocent either. They used the mistreatment of their people in Honduras to whip up their own brand of nationalism. It was like watching two guys in a bar trying to one-up each other, except instead of embarrassing themselves, they were about to get thousands of people killed. The days following the match were a whirlwind of chaos and violence. Newspapers on both sides fanned the flames with exaggerated stories and straight-up lies. Rumors spread like wildfire, and soon, both countries were gripped by a terrifying wave of nationalist hysteria. It wasn't just talk either. Things turned ugly fast. Salvadoran immigrants living in Honduras were attacked, their homes and businesses destroyed. Thousands were forced to flee back across the border, carrying nothing but the clothes on their backs. It was a humanitarian crisis unfolding in real time. The situation was spiraling out of control, and both governments, instead of trying to calm things down, were about to make a very, very bad decision. Section 4. War breaks out. On July 14, 1969, just a few weeks after that fateful soccer match, the unthinkable happened. Honduras severed diplomatic ties with El Salvador, and get this, El Salvador responded by invading Honduras. You heard that right? They invaded a country over a soccer game? Now I know what you're thinking, this sounds like the plot of a bad movie. But, sadly, this was all too real. The Salvadoran Air Force bombed Honduran targets, and ground troops marched across the border. The war was on. Section 5. The 100-Hour War. Now this wasn't exactly a world war, mind you. The whole thing lasted about 100 hours, which, to be fair, is still 100 hours too long for a war started over a soccer match. But in those 100 hours, things got real ugly, real fast. Both sides committed atrocities, civilians were caught in the crossfire, and thousands of people lost their lives. There were dogfights between vintage World War II fighter planes, tanks rolled across borders, and hand-to-hand combat in the streets. It was chaos, pure and simple. And for what? A game? Political maneuvering? It was madness. Finally, after 4 days of fighting and with the body count rising, the Organization of American States stepped in and managed to negotiate a ceasefire. The war, thankfully, was over, but the scars, both physical and emotional, would take generations to heal. Section 6. The long shadow of a football war. So what did this ridiculous war actually accomplish? Well, besides the tragic loss of life and widespread destruction, not a whole lot. The underlying issues of immigration, land reform, and economic inequality, yeah, those were still there, festering like an open wound. The football war stands as a stark reminder of how quickly passions can be inflamed, how easily nationalism can be exploited, and how incredibly stupid war truly is. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of letting tensions fester and the importance of addressing real problems instead of looking for scapegoats. And to think, it all started with a game of soccer. Talk about a red card for humanity.